So we came together as global healers, social justice warriors, which, as you just said, Audrey, many people are calling themselves that now. So, but we were one of the first in line. Basically, we embrace a narrative that enhances people's power to create better ways of living, allows spoken truth to be heard, acknowledges the life-altering impacts of trauma, and protects those deemed as other from being labeled, punished, degraded, ostracized, and removed from society. Audrey, you recently wrote a piece, which I want to quote from. It was, you were asking a question of Lisa Murkowski. What was it titled, Audrey?
Lisa Murkowski, it's your time, or something like that. Now is your time.
Yeah, and in that piece, you said the following: we march, we protest, we gather in large numbers despite the violence at the hands of the police, despite the very real threat of COVID-19, because we all sense that finally, we have the momentum. Finally, we have the courage en masse to turn this comprehensive disaster around. Maybe, just maybe, we realize that the leaders we've been waiting for out there are maddeningly, disappointingly, infuriatingly not there. The leaders we've been waiting for are us. And that really resonated with me, Audrey. I couldn't agree more. And I agree with all of you that we are in this pivotal moment, not just here in the United States, but throughout the world. And it's a momentous time in our lives. And you also stated that and these are your words, I hope that the time is now for us, all of us, in ways big and small, to demand better. And so my question for the three of you is, what must each of us do? What is ours to do in big or small ways towards the creation of a better world for all of us? Jump in.
Oh, that old thing?
Yeah, right. No easy, no small thing. Do you want to go first, Peter?
No.
Eve?
Eve, you're muted.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. No, I was gonna say go right ahead. I'm just getting adjusted here.
It's on you, Audrey.
Yeah, well, first I'll say I was really inspired to start doing my blog posts again. So I'll get back to that. Maybe I'll end what I'm saying with that in terms of one thing I can do. But the first thing I think about is that there are things that we all must do. I think we have to unlearn all of I'll just call it internalized racism that we all have internalized. We talk about racism like it's out there. And of course, there definitely is systemic and structural racism baked into all of American policy and institutions, and in our language, in our culture. And it's just we swim in it. So of course we've internalized a lot of it. So something we all must do is unlearn a lot of the false, deadly myths and mistruths about white supremacy and about the inferiority of other people, about white men versus women. So there's just so much, and I find I've sought to read, to listen, to be very, very mindful of any assumption I have about how things are, because guess what? Many times I find that things aren't really that way. I was just told they were that way, or That's a false truth that I've learned. So all of us can do that, and all of us must do that. I think we all have to be anti-racist. It's no longer cool to just say, well, I'm not a racist, or I don't see color, or all these things people say, sounding like they have no part in it. The fact of the matter is there is no middle ground on this. There is no sitting this one out. Either we are pro-racist or we're anti-racist. And I'm not a person that typically thinks in terms of this or that kind of thinking. But in this case, I don't see sitting idly by as an option. We all have to work to undo racism. So what does that mean? So to me, it means in particular ways, given my talent, skills, the opportunities and networks that I'm in, I have to think about in what ways every day do I have a choice. I'm in a decision moment where I can speak up, I can say something, I can act in a way that's going to undo something that my crap detector is telling me something ain't right here. So what kind of choice am I going to make? Especially those of us who are in decision-making positions, when we are making decisions that affect other people's lives. We run programs, we organize people, we decide whether we will speak or whether we will make space for somebody else to speak. These are all decisions and actions, even in our interpersonal relationships. Did I have to say that thing? What value did it add? In what way did it lift somebody up? Was that an opportunity to educate somebody? Was that an opportunity for me to speak up and say, wait a minute, you might want to rethink the thing you're about to say or do, considering how it might affect other people? All of us are in those spots all the time. So what do? We make the decision to act in ways that will not perpetuate inequality or inequity. In my particular career path, job, whatever we want to call it, I think about, my writing, my facilitation, my race equity training, my developmental evaluation, my humility, my self-awareness as I do my job. Writing a blog is something I can do to speak against racism. So I guess to summarize it all, I would say I think there are things that we all have to do regarding becoming anti-racist and learning what that means. And then we have to act consistently. And we'll make mistakes, that's okay, but act consistently in ways big and small, in your everyday interactions or in your job and decision-making roles that you have. Act. Make the choice to undo racism.
Thank you, Audrey. Eve or Peter?
Well, I think, Audrey, you spoke to what I was thinking. I'm an old white guy, so, what immediately springs to mind is, what does accountability look like? And I think so much of what you just said speaks to that. That sense of constant awareness, just sort of observing myself, observing those around me, not taking anything for granted about what assumptions, as you described, that we've all, been raised in, each in our own families and our own communities with understandings of the world that are very different from what's real, and what other people's experience of the world is. One of the things I talk about when I was doing child protection work, I was identifying what I saw as the problems in the families. And I was completely overlooking what, all the priorities they had in order to survive that I couldn't even see. And I think, the biggest lesson I learned was the value of listening and that awareness that you described of sort of, really second guessing myself. And, the other piece I'm reminded constantly of is there's an element here of feeling both incredibly hopeful that that we've reached a turning point, and incredibly, I've been reading the biography of Ida B. Wells, who was talking about, really sort of initiated an anti-lynching movement in the late 19th century. And, I'm reading things she says and observes and things people say, and I'm thinking, that was 120 years ago, 130 years ago. What the hell? This is, I'm hearing the same thing and seeing the same things. And and they were kind of coming to terms and realizing, oh, this is really important realization, and it was. But we're still having those realizations. But what I met somebody last fall for the first time who I had heard speak in 1969, a guy by the name of Bill Baird, and he was a reproductive rights advocate and was instrumental in, his name is on the Supreme Court decisions that led to abortion rights. But he had a really deep influence on me. And I've always remembered him. I didn't speak to him at the time. I heard him speak in an auditorium. And I had the opportunity to tell him that he really influenced my life in a way that he would never have known if I hadn't run into him, but just by chance. And I just struck again and again by that notion of those little seeds that we all plant that we may never know take hold, and how important it is to just keep as desperate, as disappointed as we get when we look at 130 years or 400 years or 2,000 years of history and think, what the hell, where we haven't made any progress. It's just so powerful to me to remember that we have made progress. Things are different, not as different as we'd like them to be, but and when I despair that all the actions that I've taken over the years have had no impact, which I these days I often do, I remind myself of that notion of, there are people out there who I may have planted a seed with that I will never know. And that it's just really important for me to hold on to that and keep believing that and knowing that I can keep doing that, even though I don't see the results.
Thank you both, Audrey and Peter. Eve?
I just want to thank Audrey and Peter. I think they both put it in very beautiful words, how they express themselves, and I appreciate it. There's something about what Audrey said, and I tend to get a little emotional all the time. But I think where you said that we need to step up as leaders. Sometimes it's just waiting to see what's done, and I think that speaks very loudly that we all need to step up as leaders and create this, awareness within ourselves, and we'll be modeling it for other people. And Peter expressed it very nicely, because we are planting seeds. These are the seeds that we plant. And we all know that modeling is how people learn. And by witnessing how we live and what we say speaks louder than anything else. So I believe in my heart that it's time for us to step up, however that may look like. A blog, it's not just a blog. The reality is we're doing something, and we're also being witnessed by others, the way we're creating this change within ourselves, of being aware, the way we speak, the way we address, or even at the times the way we may correct a family member from saying things. I know I have that within my own culture, or Hispanics. We come in all shades. And unfortunately and unfortunately, there is racism within the culture. And the more I've been digging into history, which has created a lot of awareness, um, I've been grateful of looking into the past. How Peter's mentioned, reading our history and where we've been and how far we've come, and how we may still be repeating some things from the past. Maybe now we can address and how we can create the change. I I strongly believe that coming together and doing this together as a united force will create a bigger change. I don't believe in division. I really believe that we all need to come together as one and do it together as one, not one race or another race, but just unify and just say, this is what we want. We don't want to see any of this. This is inhumane, what is being done. So this is for humanity, and this is what we need to choose, so that way there are no more divisions. There is awareness coming through. I could see it in different, I would say, Instagrams and different types of media, how people are becoming aware of their history. Okay. And the history is so important because there is no one race. We are all mixed. The more you dig into this, the more you can see there is so much of us, and we're all the same. We can't just say white, black, mestizo, Indian. The reality is, there is no pure race. It does not exist no more. We are all mixed. Look at the history. We've all been together through generations. Okay. And now what is it, that web page that they put in their DNA and you can see where you come from? I mean, we come from all over. So I strongly believe that, we are modeling in our ways. We're creating these seeds in whichever way that we're doing it. But I really do believe that we need to do it as a united front, not one race, not the other, just united. You know, we're all the same. So I think it would make it stronger. That's all I have to say.
James, is it okay if I piggyback on what Eve just so eloquently said?
Absolutely, please.
I interpreted your question to be about what Audrey can do as an individual, but I think what Eve lifted in this conversation prompts me to speak about us as a united front. When this country was founded, part of what I talked about in my video is it was a group of white men who had power, who wrote some words that sounded really great and full of values that they had no intention of upholding, at least in a way that reflected what was true at the time that they signed it. Several of them were slave owners. So the idea with all the flowery language about all men created equal and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness was words that weren't even true at the time they wrote it. So it really reminds me that this country was founded by white men in power who put some things in motion to remain in power. And we all sort of bought it and enabled the continuation throughout all of this time of this grand experiment where every time those of us who want that to be our reality fight against those who hold on to the power to make sure that they stay in power. And so we must unite as a group of people who really are fighting for what those folks who wrote that Constitution never intended for the rest of us. And so us waking up to that awareness and realizing that there are so many of us who united can really push forward. And that includes many, many white people who join arms with us and say, no, we want equity for all too. That's not our trip. And so how then? And I heard Killer Mike say something along the lines of, we must get up, we must protest, we must organize, we must strategize, we must mobilize, we must hold people account, we must get in office, and we must hold people accountable. We must become the leaders who actually are connected and represent us. And we can do that. This is a country of the people, by the people, for the people. We can do that. And that's what we see happening. Folks are going, wait a minute. We don't want things to be this way. So we, whether we protest, whether we organize, whether we strategize, whether we're in Congress, at the city, state, or federal level, it takes all of us in all of these spaces, inside these institutions and outside of them, to work together as one, as Eve said. And I'm feeling like something's happening to make that real. And so what can we do? Well, we can do our individual part, but we can also be participants in that larger collective effort. We got to vote. We got to get other people to vote. We got to hold people accountable once we get them in office. You know, anyway.
Thank you, Audrey. Thank you, Audrey, Peter, and Evelia. I'm going to end this with a quote by Desmond Tutu that really speaks deeply to me. And I like you, Eve, tend to get emotional. But I'm grateful to each one of you for having held me and for helping me to see myself. And it's really what he's speaking to. A person is a person through other persons. None of us comes into this world fully formed. We would not know how to think or walk or speak or behave as human beings unless we learned it from another human being. We need other human beings in order to be human. Thank you, guys. I can't wait to share your interviews, and thank you for helping me to be more human. Love you guys.
Love you, James.
Love you
Thank
too,
you for
James.
bringing us together.
Nice
Nice to see
seeing
you.
Yes, nice seeing you all. Take good
Nice seeing
care.
you all. Thank you.
Bye-bye.